In the Song of Roland, ice cream is not anachronistic. Though briefly mentioned in the category of arms and logistics, it was never hotly debated. Roland sang from his ice cream cart, sword in hand, chainmail rattling like codfish, percolating in a chocolate fountain. "Helados!" he bravely cried. That's ice cream. "Helados!" Staking his territorial claim with crema de mango and papaya, falling on foes with flavors yet untried, and gathering armies of javelina children who followed him into the great dark, wielding banknote proofs of Adam's ruin, riding moving paths through aquarium tunnels of genders beyond counting. But the dogs of war pissed in unison, raising their fiery tails like the sweet banners of Jerusalem as King Paco, come now to seize the mercantile roots of Roland's barrio empire, slouched upon the foredeck of his ice cream cart to taunt Roland. "Besa mi cula, pendejo," he hollered at the pugnacious vendor of legend. With the strength of the arm of the Lord of Hosts, Roland raised his thunderous accessories and with austere grace and gelatinous inflection, insulted insolent Paco with magnificent profanities. But from Cafe Susie Pepe to San Isidro's and Sons, Paco laid siege to the block with dulce de leche that caresses lips and tongues like long, delicious kisses, and cold, sweet horchata reminiscent of gardenias. And one by one, the fickle javelinas deserted Roland, left him broke and lonely, and swore their pocket change to Paco only. And so it is written that Roland, perceiving all was lost, lay down upon freshly poured concrete to make indelible snow angels and weep. The fall of Roland followed summer's fall into the golden leaves of fall, along with all the other fallen heroes, raked, bagged in plastic, and set out behind a wall to be hauled out in the morning and compressed to the music of a hydraulic compactor. The only Sophoclean chorus in this tragedy. Which brings us now to Aristotle, whom I would beg, bribe, and throttle to learn the relevance of the elements of tragedy to Mexican ice cream. Would Oedipus have liked it? Would he have married his mother for a frozen mango on a stick? Would he have put his eyes out for a dip of pistachio? What walks on four legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening? Hell if I know, Oedipus replies to the murderous Sphinx. Why don't you try one of these fruity popsicles? But see here, oh shit, the Song of Roland is dripping down my knuckles. I catch the phrases with my tongue, but already the song is poised to drip again. Dogs, pissed in unison, sweet banners of Jerusalem. Now that's a tasty rhyme, if I may say so. But the song is dripping on these pages, and I must wipe the messy phrases with my shirt tail. And seeing now that my child has fallen asleep, I close this book and kiss her cheek, and mulling over the ancient confectionery struggle in the quiet of her room, I realize it is a brazen fact that hillbillies have eyes like rooftops, and that mulberries have calved like summer glaciers because of the scurrying of field mice. Better stories, not self-pity, but resignation to iridescent smoke of mythic battles drives the painted cart. Because after all, even soap suds are effortlessly lovely in the same poignant sense. You're kind. Thanks a lot. So as you can see, I'm not black, but I'm brown, sort of. Grew up in Texas in the late 60s, mid 60s, 60s, 70s, the Vietnam era. And in the only sort of halfway hippie family in a working class neighborhood. And when the first black family moved into our neighborhood, I heard all the parents, all of the fathers overheard them talking in one of the houses I was at about how to get rid of them. Various ways they could do it, things they could do. I went home and told my dad. My dad said, okay, well, go up straight there, son, and invite him for dinner tonight. This is in the summertime when everybody sits on their porch in the evening. And so he and I walked them to our house after everybody got home from work, you know, and it's a big family. Nobody talked about getting rid of them after that. But I took ass kickings after that, on maybe 2 or 3 a week. I had 7 broken bones by the time I was 15. And the neighborhood was a very violent neighborhood in general. But I had people, you know, hold me down with a boot in my throat while somebody else pissed in my mouth. I mean, it was, you know, or somebody else breaking my hand with a brick. But the meanest guy in our mean neighborhood lived next door. And this poem is called The Only God We Knew. In a way, he was the mean God, but the only relationship I had with any God at all was getting out of the neighborhood and into the fields and the pastures just beyond the neighborhood, where I felt I was in the presence of something protective. Elmer cruised the town in his Coupe de Ville with the windows down, his arm around a homely girl, a cigar dangling from his lip like a semi-erect penis. His wife took the bed, wore the yoke, pulled the burden, choked down curses, powdered her bruises, and made his excuses, even when he raped their daughter. Light leaks into the floor, spatial dimensions dissolve, and all are enveloped in the permanent crippling of time when nightmares trespass the waking world. The nightmare spat a lit stub into the child's face, unzipped his pants, and crawled across the bed to where she cowered and bawled before her mother shoved us from the dark hall and slammed the door. Green lawns convulsed in the summer glare across our salt-seared eyes, swelling and contracting like Sunday comics on silly putty. Elmer Jr. wiped a tear and swallowed his puke as we stared down the row of refrigerated housewife cells at the game show canned laughter cacophony of countless color televisions, each illuminating a woman in hairspray curlers, lighting cigarettes, changing channels, licking green stamps, folding socks, drinking gin spiked Kool-Aid, and eyeing clocks outpaced by Technicolor time. Chittering sprinklers soaked sharp boxwoods. Wasted rivulets ran like mascara down concrete walks and dripped like sweat from slash pines and tear-shaped cardboard cutout trees of the dollhouse yards. We walked to the street's end and crossed 3 strands of rusted wire into the open cattlelands, spread wide like waiting arms. Summer milkweed snow swirled in the hot wind. Cicadas sizzled, echoed by parched cottonwood leaves. On the far hill, a mulberry cradled us in her broad limbs to suckle her purple fruit. Lightning flashed from blue-gray folds of cloud too far to hear. Gusting wind lifted leaves from the ground and spun them into sanctuary walls. And in a sudden spray of cloud-shattered light, they stopped and spiraled down upon their stems, shimmering and twirling like parasols of hammered gold. Do just a couple more here. This is about walking around in the pastures with my brother in Texas in the extreme heat, which we love to do, actually. It's called Lotus Sutra. Walking the risen floor of a dead sea, the unbroken sky in our hair, white light burns breath to dust, splinters words, instructs us in the practice of contentment. Bitter and broomweed bloom tall ochre blossoms over low fields of cornflower blue shimmering through a lens of sweat. In the eternally returning summers of remembered time, cumulonimbus simmer and boil over dry arroyos and fence lines. Mindful of rattlesnake, cholla, cocklebird, devil's claw, copperhead, mesquite shank, bull nettle, barbed wire wreath, rusted metal fragments of forsaken farm implements, and scattered post-apocalyptic debris, the broken teeth of time's sardonic grin, we meander into shoulder-width shade of a stunted live oak to share a cigarette. I take this little flame, this Eucharistic fragment of sun, like Isaiah's flaming coal upon my lips, infuse my flesh with fire, and into the blinding cobalt exhale the sting of blessing. Thanks. Let's see here. This is one that's never going to be finished, but fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway. Because it really doesn't matter. That's like we were telling the guys at the jail the other night, at the prison. You know, it's the process that counts. It's not the final product that counts as much as what it does for you when you write. So I grew up with my dad in a 1970s bachelor pad after he left my mother, and we left that neighborhood. And so this is about him going back and visiting him when he shot himself in the head about 15 years ago. My father collected elephant figurines because elephants counseled him in dreams, praising fidelity to conscience and compass, or reprimanding betrayal and self-deception. Wanting him to want to love, they encouraged him in whispers or withering looks, but never the dissonant arpeggio of elephants. He drowns their admonitions in stereophonic sound, because life ain't nothing but a party, until one morning, when even that handsome devil in the mirror drifted away with the last of the inebriated guests, squinting against the summer's steamy glare. I read that wrong, but never mind. Regret accumulated debt that only love could purchase, so the interest was paid in dread. Collection agencies left messages on his phone. He listened to them, hoping for any old familiar voice. He lay awake, stood, sat, walked, pissed, ate, and lay awake again, wandering into the decades, faithfully attended by his loneliness. Reclined on his sofa and closing his eyes, he began to wonder where he had mislaid his life. The day grew bright. His mind fell into darkness. Scent of urine and spilled beer, perfume and cigarettes clung to dust motes in the predatory sunlight, illuminating the desolation of untroubled bedclothes. That night, he woke to find that he could not remember most of the women who surrounded his bed like angry mirrors, reflecting his malignant regret. We came for Christmas to his tiny house. I lay on a mattress by a window awake and heard a sound like a stone split, or the sickening pop of breath sucked from a suffocating bottle as a cork is wrenched from its throat. In the driveway, I held his hand. The other lay open beside him, palm facing up, as if to receive a sympathetic coin. His eyes were closed against the world. Blood pooled and flowed from the folds of his coat. The backyard fence became for him an impassable perimeter. In days that followed, he paced and stood in my peripheral vision, unable to quit a nightmarish solitude incomparable to his former loneliness. His brother sat with me in the winter sun. "Take anything you want," I said, turning and lifting his chin and then his eyes so that mine should follow. "Just this," he said. I made it for him. sort of shield. In a round frame above the bed, its blue and cinnabar forms posed like clouds or like perpetually altered questions. "Let's burn it," he said. "Send it to me." I, my father's brother, his brother's wife, and mine, set it on a flame and wandered and watched it curl to ash, then drowned the embers in wine. Half to myself I spoke, "Hey, Pop, can you let me know somehow you're okay?" Shit. I thought, he's not okay, he's dead. Still, as I slid back the patio door, something fell from the shelf above, grazed my uncle's shoulder, and disappeared into house plant foliage at our feet. The air was suddenly brittle. "Did you hear that high-pitched sound?" he asked. No. My uncle became still, then stood and smiled as from the roots and leaves he lifted the elephant figurine. We all recalled my father's poem, the elephant's steady gaze as he raised the pistol and squeezed the trigger, disappearing with the same ultrasonic cry that only I had not heard. My father followed us back to our own distant home, where he continued to pace or sit in our yard. I saw him daily from the edge of my vision until one day, after lying with my wife beside open windows in a leaf song of summer breeze, I realized he had gone. 9 months later, in a hospital bed, a plastic elephant leapt down from my high shelf into her lap. Violet, pink, and purple as a newborn infant, it leaned tenderly to her lips to press a velvet kiss. Orgasmic spasms became contractions as she woke to find that she was in labor. Eventually, when the child learned to speak with her own name in her unmastered toddler's tongue, it came out effluent. Her name is Eveline, actually. Is that time for one more here or something? Yeah. Okay, let's see here. You know, it's really weird when you're a musician and you have an instrument in your hand all the time and you stand up and you don't. It's like it makes a person feel really just vulnerable and naked, not having this guitar. So, you know, let's not do another dead people poem. I got more, but you know, got to put a stopper on that somewhere. I'll do this one if I can find it here. So when I was 15, I guess, I was hitchhiking around up in Maine, and I met a girl who was 14, and she was hitchhiking around, and she was 14 going on 25. We hitchhiked around together for a while, and oh shit, where is this poem? Here it is. These are the same poems I read last time. I gotta not do that next time. So, anyway, we went to her mother's house at one point, in Blue Hill, Maine, and made love all night, smoked a lot of dope, and she had Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks on the turntable, you know. And when I got to there's this one place where I woke up hearing it on Shelter from the Storm. It was skipping on the line, "Beauty walks the razor's edge, beauty walks the razor's edge," because, you know, so it was something. She was poised and worldly at 14, while I at 15 defiantly scowled at drivers that she thumbed down. Do this again. She was poised and worldly at 14, while I at 15 defiantly scowled at drivers she thumbed down in the rain from Bar Harbor to Blue Hill. Salt sheen of freckled cheeks, garnet lips, and rivulets of wet red locks bent their wheels to her will and brought us through darkening evergreen to her mother's house by water, enfolded in mist and summer fireflies. "Come in," she said, and smiling took my sodden clothes, my crown of thorns, and handed me a towel. Naked, we stood apart, uncertain as Eve when she studied truth in the serpent's eye. "Your eyes shall be opened," he said. So she weighed the moment with care, and then having chosen, did not squander it with timorous hesitation, but gave herself entirely. That is how joy came into the world. Not consummation, but betrayal of desire compels exile, the curse of everlasting regret. But we were as gods of an ancient scripture, suffused in sepia, rising and falling and rising until at last we woke in the morning late to the spiraling scratch and skip of a dusty phonograph needle that in my sleep had inscribed upon the inner amethyst of my skull, "Beauty walks a razor's edge."